everybody, and welcome on into another episode of Great Quarter Gals. Great to have you guys with us on this Tuesday afternoon. I'm Kaylee Nix. Joined with me is my fabulous co-host, Grace Sharkey. Grace, we are so glad to be back here for yet another episode, and welcome on into the show.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. I just saw you. You were just here in Chattanooga for our FreightWaves company kickoff. We had this little internal event last week, and it was great. And right now, you're actually technically on vacation, and so I'm just flattered that you're calling in for Great Quarter Gals. It means the world.
Yeah, I'm a block away from the beach right now, so I could literally be anywhere else. It's nice down here, but of course, we have a wonderful guest today, so I couldn't miss it.
Absolutely. And so this is Great Quarter Gals. This is the show where we talk all about incredible women doing incredible things in the freight and logistics space. And as Grace mentioned, we will have an amazing guest to join us today. This is our second episode of the year. And so far, January is off to a bang, depending on what industry you're in. We always start off with news of the day, and today, unfortunately, we are talking all about layoffs. And layoffs currently abounding in a lot of spaces, especially in the freight tech space. We've got some big names up on our list today: Amazon, Uber Freight, and Google.
Yeah, all big ones. I think what's important too is to realize the tech focus of all of this as well, right? You're not seeing this in other areas or other markets in all industries, right? You're seeing this in technology in particular. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. I think clearly a lot of those technologies are put under pressure, right, during COVID. Hey, we need Uber more than ever. We need to figure out different ways to deliver to our customers, whether it's drones or some other needs. So there's that huge ramp up of acquiring talent for that. I mean, we saw it. People were just leaving their jobs and finding the best thing available. And I think Uber will put it in probably the most professional way, but at times are normalizing. And those last couple of years, that ramp up was needed, but not needed as much today.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about Uber Freight to start off this discussion about these layoffs, because you're right. I feel like they did it in a very professional and straightforward manner. And they were simply just came out and said, you know what? Our market expectations, the market realities did not live up to the expectations that we saw when we hired all these folks. And it's very interesting because about 3% of their workforce, about 150 jobs is what they ended up cutting, all in the digital brokerage side and all within their freight matching app, their digital freight matching application. Grace, I know we've talked a lot, you and I both together and through different entities, about people who are continuing to see the value in the investment in freight tech. What do we think those two kind of statements say towards each other? You've got investors and VC firms saying, yeah, we still believe in the staying power of freight and freight tech. And then you've got a major freight tech company with a big platform like Uber Freight's digital brokerage saying, you know what, we overestimated the market. Are those two thoughts kind of at odds with each other?
Well, what's interesting too, right, is think of the type of freight that's being attacked right now. It's contract freight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're focused on that contract freight, you're probably talking a little bit more to the managed services side, which is going to be transplaced than you are spending time on the app. I think it was, I want to say it was Convoy, right? A couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, time flies. It just came out with their contract service, right? There's different lanes that you can, in a contractual way, take for an extended period of time. Well, it makes sense. That's what people are looking for. They need some stability, right? They don't want to be playing on the spot market or playing on load boards at this point in time. They just can't gauge their business that way. So I think it has a little bit to do with clearly where we are in the economy, but I think another part of it is look at the market, right? That most carriers are going to be wanting to attack. And if you're a shipper in that unit, you're probably talking to managed services side or the transplace individuals compared to the Uber Freight side.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's a really good point to bring up there. Let's move on to now, we talked about Uber Freight, the good way to do the bad thing of layoffs. Let's move to the opposite side, because Google is in a little bit of hot water for doing this, right? 12,000 of their global jobs being cut. And some of these jobs being cut just through a company email that went to employees' Google email, which they couldn't access. So it's kind of this game of roulette. You show up to work on Monday morning and does your badge let you in or not? Like, what the heck is up with that?
I also imagine, I wonder if these people use Gmail and how awful that feels at this point in time too.
Mm-hmm.
Switching over to Hotmail last second. It's it's the same thing. I mean, what's frustrating is you do hear about, I think, what was it, 41% revenue growth over the last year, but it's like we even write about, you'll see often in sonar analysis pieces, we're going back to an original market in the last couple of years, especially. Everyone's at home Googling COVID-19 all day long. There's some huge different initiatives that they're working on. And I think those have to slow down. When money's not coming in, a lot of those projects do have to slow down. And uh, people, I think, just start, when we talk about normal, we almost need to talk about the opposite way, how abnormal the last 2 years are, and just
Mm-hmm.
reminding people that, like, no, 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 there's a society where we didn't work from home all day, and we spent less on free capital, right? Like, that market and those interest rates and that time is gone. And I think, like I said, it's not even about going back to normal. It's just reminding people that no, that was abnormal.
Absolutely. So one last question for you, Grace, before we get into our guest. Our chief economist here at FreightWaves, Anthony Smith, always likes to talk about how the labor side of things isn't really reflecting the economic tightness in the side of the recession, right? Like we are, quote unquote, in this financial recession, but still the labor market is not reflecting that. Unemployment's low. People are still leaving their jobs to find new opportunities and doing so willingly. Do you think that we hit a point maybe towards the middle to end of the first quarter, even the first half of this year, where we start to see that true labor recession come in line with the financial recession?
I go back and forth because there's one part of me that wants to remind myself that we do have, over and over, year after year, more individuals retiring, right, than we have people entering the market. My biggest fear is at some point it'll be very normal for people to have two jobs. And so I think it's hard to see, of course, that hiring data, and then also see credit card utilization so high, and seeing clearly layoffs happening as well. It's a the what's great, clearly these people are going to find jobs. It's going to be as great as the jobs that happened again in that abnormal time period. Probably not. So people, I think, really need to talk with their managers. And if you're a contract employee, right, we're seeing a lot of that. Get in your contracts, extend them for a couple of years, figure out if you're a contract employee for a certain amount and there's a chance they could cut you, some type of rebate or something for that. I would, if I was just, I'd be looking for a solid job right now,
Mm-hmm.
with opportunity and growth and true growth. And people, I think, of all industries should probably be talking to their managers about the long-term decisions their companies are looking to make. But if you're in tech, read headlines, I guess, at this point.
Read headlines and maybe make sure that your emails are going to a separate account that's not directly tied to your workplace. Just a little
Yeah,
pro
and like
tip.
maybe think back. Did your company go on a huge hiring? Were you part of that hiring spree? And realize, okay, if and think to yourself, I mean, we can all easily do that. What value am I truly giving? Am I higher than so? So I think it's important for people, if they really want to uh, be a part of this market, and especially a situation where there's just so many other jobs available. People aren't going to feel as awful about having to cut in order to save their cash flow.
Absolutely. It sounds like we need to get Charlie Saffro back on here to give us her tips and tricks for staying recruitable in a market like this. But maybe that'll happen later. Grace, speaking of guests, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest for today? We've got a really exciting topic.
Yes. Okay. So I love this. I don't want to say girl, gal, woman. I love her so much. She's been a huge, I think, part of this industry, especially in helping me learn more about the technology side, introducing me to different companies. With us today, we have Priyanka Ann Saini from, of course, Charlie Peste's consulting and marketing group. And Priyanka, thank you for coming on. I'm happy to have you on the show. I think you're going to be able to highlight a different piece of the consulting and marketing and sales side of this tech industry.
Thank you so much for having me, Grace. I'm so happy to be here, and I completely echo your sentiments. I love working with you and introducing you to different companies.
So Priyanka,
Yeah.
thank you again for being on as our guest today as well. Talk to us a little bit about your role in the industry with Charlie Peste and how you kind of got into your space in this consulting job.
Thanks, Kaylee. So I got into this space very organically. I was always drawn to writing and journalism. So I started my career in a maritime publication that was core shipping. And I remember writing a lot about the human component of the maritime industry. So I would write about seafarer stories and their issues, and then also tech, right? Because it was fascinating to me. The industry was always projected to me as very traditional, very manual, something that hadn't changed for years and years. So when I would see some tech popping up, like satcoms, I would interview the CEO and then write a feature about that, and that's how Charlie found me, and he said, "Hey, would you like to do a few pieces on supply chain and logistics technology?" And I think from the first piece, I was hooked. And I'm here to stay now. I love my place in the logistics industry with all the moving parts and seeing how technology is bringing it all together.
Yeah, and what's really great too is you even introduced me to a lot of companies outside of, especially investment outside of the United States, and companies that are helping other countries and regions across the globe with the same e-commerce issues that we're having here, but they're all at different stages, and there's different pieces of the supply chain that you're helping with. Do you think, looking at supply chain issues throughout the world, do you think that there's certain regions that are, in particular, a little bit more fascinating and maybe in their growth and exponential growth into technology, and others that maybe just regions that we should be keeping our eye on as individuals in the space?
Absolutely. I mean, I think every region right now is reacting to the unique problems that they have. For example, not many people know this. I live in a remote place in North India, in Kashmir, which is at the foothills of the Himalayas. And over there, we have extreme weather for 6 months of the year, and also security issues like terrorism is still a thing there. So we see, tech players trying to leverage local expertise to navigate these conditions and improve last mile. But then you go to a place like Egypt where you see deep technology like blockchain, that's being implemented, and all of Egyptian customs is now on blockchain. And then in the US, you see things like drone delivery, and autonomous trucks could be a thing sometime very soon. So I think it's about what the problems are in each region. But what I can see is that tech is in the forefront now, and a lot of people and a lot of countries are open to tech innovations. And so I think we're going to see a lot of fascinating things in 2023.
I think that is super fascinating to think about how everybody is kind of on this different scale when you look at where they're at and where they're operating in the logistics space. We've had a lot of discussions with our founder and CEO, Craig Fuller here, who tends to think that we're moving on a full supply chain scale, less from a globalization standpoint and more towards a regionalization standpoint, where instead of seeing maybe these major world players like the United States, India, China, all kind of having the main stronghold over the supply chain, we see it more on a region by region basis. Do you think that that's something that we could be headed towards? And would that almost really support solving these region by region issues if we look to take our supply chains a little more regional instead of global?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if we collaborate, right, working in silos is no longer a thing. You have to collaborate, you have to exchange information, you have to share ideas, and you have to understand the unique problems of the region. Sometimes it's not just physical or geographical. There are also cultural elements that come into place. And I say this because of my background and where I'm from. Culture plays a huge role in technology in places like, India and the APAC region at large.
Yeah, as you're working with these different companies abroad, what are some of your favorite players in the space that are really pushing the technology out there today?
I would be biased here, Grace, in saying that, the companies
True.
that I
Yeah.
work with are
Yeah.
my favorite companies. But this is because we're so invested in their journeys, right? We create assets for them. We create marketing and sales collaterals, for example. We do their white papers and their case studies and their reports. So we can not only see the value that they're bringing to their customers, but also the industry at large. But going back to your question, if I were to name some of these companies, it would be C3 solutions, doing great things, putting, drivers in focus when they're creating solutions. We can see great things happening with Boxy and, e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, Cargo X. I love Tive as well, Schiffel, Turvo. So I work with them very closely, so I'm quite invested in their journeys. And so, yeah.
It's like trying to pick a favorite child, right? Like which of your favorite clients is the favorite one? Maybe it's a little bit easier from the technology side of things. Are there specific pieces of supply chain technology right now that are coming out that you guys see is just fascinating, or maybe the next up and coming piece that we're not quite focused on yet, but that could take a lot of focus in the near future?
Yeah, I've been always fascinated by visibility, Kaylee. I mean, just seeing it progress from where's my stuff to now getting more specialized, and looking at these founders and CEOs and these dev teams really listening to their customers and making more specialized products for different industries. So you'll see now visibility solutions in the pharma and fresh produce industry different from other sectors, right? So giving them data that they need, solutions that they need specific to their industries, and then also technologies that put the human element in focus and support the human element in the supply chain. Like I said, C3 and their dock scheduling and yard management, giving time and money back to drivers. And then also deep technology, seeing blockchain progress from a buzzword and pilot stage to now being implemented and watching millions of transactions on these platforms, things that would take days and weeks and months now being done in a matter of minutes or seconds or days, as opposed to months and months. And then I would also say that sustainability is a huge theme now. We're seeing a lot of that coming up. So measure to manage, right? Technology that can show you data that you can use to then control things like scope 3 emissions.
Yeah, it's I'm really excited because I feel like something like Chat GPT, right, that dropped like right before the new year, showcases to everyone that like, oh, technology is much further than we thought. And if we utilize data correctly, we can really change things and change jobs. And we're seeing these layoffs, and I think it'll be a really fascinating year for tech and the steps we take forward. And clearly, as a part of this show, Priyanka, tell us a little bit about what it's like being a woman, especially being in part of journalism in the past, being in marketing now, and doing this job, and clearly other countries, other cultures, etc. What's it like for, I guess, a woman in your space? And do you think that there's areas in the work that you do where more women could be involved, especially around the globe?
Yeah, absolutely, Grace. I think the supply chain industry and the logistics industry requires people who can multitask, and women are natural multitaskers. You require people who can bring different perspectives to problems, because the problems are so unique and you do require different perspectives. So I think women are required in all parts of the supply chain. And in my experience, I've seen that there have been times where my ideas have been radically different from those of my male counterparts, just because of the way I see the world, right? It's a different perspective because of, my cultural and social background. I have a different approach to problem solving. So I think women are definitely needed in this industry, and we have to do more to encourage women to enter the industry. But I do see women excelling in the supply chain industry, actually.
Building up that kind of bank of diversification and diverse ideas and diverse voices is something that is so, so, so important for us. And it's like one of the main reasons why we started a show like this, right? Is to bring these unique voices to the forefront and give it a platform to stand on, give everybody a platform to stand on. When you're looking at the eventual, what the eventual supply chain landscape of the supply chain looks like, right? Either from a leadership standpoint or just from kind of a company standpoint, what is the one goal that you would have for women looking to enter the space? If you want to create a diverse space, you've got to bring up those voices, right? So are you looking to build that diversity yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's also how we project ourselves as an industry, right, Kaylee? We always say it's a male-dominated industry. It's been a male-dominated industry. If we put out content that shows there's a space for women in the industry and what are things they could do and how they could fit in, promote role models and also things like basic things like understanding what women's needs are, giving them a space to be both comfortable and productive within the industry are conversations that we need to have. More women are encouraged to join.
Yeah, I think, and hopefully too, we focus on getting women more in STEM programs because, as we see, right, a lot of these areas where technology can be improved, but the partnerships needed in those silos that need to be broken down. It's a lot of integration. That's a lot of work for, I think, technology focused employees in the future. Right. That's why I see these layoffs, and I feel like there's going to be a good future for this same type of workforce as we continue to grow supply chains across the globe and consider even different regions to manufacture, right? So a lot of that's going to take that visibility data actually working. So let's get some women behind those desks, right?
So, Priyanka, to finish this out, when you kind of look at your expectations for the space, let's say both regionally and globally in the supply chain for the next year, and maybe the next 5 years, the next 10 years, what are some things that you could expect to see start maybe trending in our industry? Or what are some trends that you would expect to stick around or maybe even fall off the map?
Yeah, I would see that, this year I can see a lot of refinement in the already existing solutions. Like I said, I can see a lot of companies working to specialize what they bring to the table now. They're looking to really listen to what customers want and how to customize things for them rather than, offering plug and play solutions. I see sustainability, people talking about sustainability and how to take that conversation forward. It's pretty much a subjective term right now, but I can see that there will be standards built and things that we'll have to comply with to ensure that we're sustainable. And I think that will also help with things like layoffs. You shouldn't see a lot of layoffs if you're being sustainable, where people are concerned and human resources are concerned too. Yeah.
Love that. And for you, Priyanka, you are back here in the US right now, and we're going to see each other here next week. I'm going to be actually on a panel with her, which I'm really excited for. For you personally, while you're here in the US, is there anything in particular that you're excited to attend outside of even Manifest next week?
I was very excited to be on this show, Grace. I'm so glad that
Yes.
we finally made that
I know the
happen.
time zones never worked, right? And now it did. Let's go. We have to become a midnight show in order to have you on.
Yeah, I'm very excited about our panel and talking to you and Eric and Matt, and it's called How to Pitch a Journalist. So you'll be, on the other side now. Charlie and me were having a laugh about it earlier about how the journalists are going to be on the other side now,
Yeah.
and I get a chance to pick your brain and interview you. I love being back in the US. I don't know why it feels like home. I'm in a very tiny hotel room in New York, but I love the vibe here, and it's always amazing to be back in the US and meet clients, meet people, and attend events.
Amazing, Priyanka. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited for you and Grace to get to hang out at Manifest coming up. Safe travels, and thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so, Grace, you mentioned it. You are headed out to Manifest here in the next week or so, and we'll have a pretty decent amount of FreightWaves representation there. You'll be there. Tim Dooner, of course, will be there. I believe he's speaking on panel as well. Pretty sure Craig Fuller's going to be there. Nobody ever fully knows his travel schedule, but I think that he's going to be there. Of course, you'll be there with Blythe Brumleve, who was a feature focus for us here on FreightWaves as well. The gang is getting back together, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm really excited. There's of course a women's luncheon too that I'm excited to be a part of, and meet a number of women I've already interviewed, and of course get to meet some more. We're doing point of sale live there on the main floor, so you guys can all find me there. But yeah, I'm excited to see a lot of the people that we get a chance to, of course, write about but might not see. And there's gonna be a lot of great tech on that floor too. So, like I said, I think this year's gonna be huge in this arena. We got to get past these layoffs and leaning everything up, but I think out of that will be some really great tech as well.
Rumor has it that Manifest is like the top party in logistics behind the Future Freight Festival, of
No,
course. So I'm
well,
like, I'm really
no, I was going to say, yeah, no, F3, that's for sure, which everyone should start booking now for next November. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you're going to Manifest, okay, great, have a great time, but also then go sign up for the Future Freight Festival next November. Grace, thank you so much again for joining us, for doing the show with me. We love doing it together. You can catch her on Wednesday's Point of Sale as well, nightly on Road Dog Radio on Sirius XM, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for FreightWaves Now.
1,